You're listening to Daily Sip with Marcel, giving you morning moments of insight, laughter, and a little something to stir the soul.
Yeah. Welcome to Daily Sip with Marcel, where we tackle the deep, complex issues of life, usually while we're trying not to sip our ethically sourced artisanal coffee. Today, we have a truly fascinating guest, Mark Winik, the story writer behind the sensationally titled, hilariously chaotic screenplay, 7.5 Shrinks. Mark, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. I've done interviews and podcasts, been interviewed all around the world, but this is really, I think, a really special time for us.
Well, Mark,
Yeah.
the first thing everyone asks about is the title. It's magnificent, and I'm talking about 7.5 Shrinks. You know, our protagonist, Stuart, he's a bundle of nerves from a lifetime of abuse. We see he's prompted to include that wonderful, specific, mysterious extra half of the title in 7.5 Shrinks. What is that half?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if the audience really knows what the shrinks are, but I think most of us really know. But Stuart the Dahlia's the protagonist. You got to feel for this poor guy because he was rejected from birth, by the hospital staff, by his parents were a little disappointed. It should be a day of joy for everybody and a moment of joy for especially the family members. And he didn't come out looking so great. So what would you expect from a guy that's been rejected from birth? It's like he's going to lead a life and a childhood filled with all kinds of...
The biggest thing is he's an extreme hypochondriac.
Well, that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, he is the ultimate in a hypochondriac. He makes a guy like Larry David look normal,
Well, I love the scene where he's sprinkling Viagra over salad. What's that all about?
There's all kinds of ways to ingest Viagra, but when you're dealing with a salad and dealing with a Viagra, you're sort of believe that it's going to be coming out natural. It's organic. So
it definitely is organic.
But it didn't really happen that way. But to get back to the half's a great question, because in this script or screenplay, poor Stuart goes through a good portion of his life from going from one psychiatrist to the next. And I thought the title would be very appropriate, even more appropriate to call them shrinks, because, most of the population knows their psychiatrist essentially reducing the little capsule known as the brain inside of our head, and their psychiatrist will examine you. But these days they just seem to not even talk with you, and they pass out pills. But Stuart learns in time that each shrink that he goes to for a different reason, and his main psychiatrist or main shrink always, he's the bad guy in the story. He keeps on wanting to make sure that he's not seen anybody else. But Stuart can't help, the main shrink's business.
Well,
but as he's going through life and he meets all these shrinks and he finds that they're all kind of screwed up in their own way, he kind of realizes that everybody in life is kind of screwed up. So the half is he finds this wonderful woman comes into his life, and she is the one that really helps treat him and cure him of all his phobics.
Well, he has an affair with her, right?
He has an affair, and I don't know if you realize that who the woman he has an affair with happens to be his main psychiatrist's wife.
Right, Dr. Proxy.
Dr. Proxy. So it just adds a lot of tension is developed there, because even if you're not a good husband, even if you are a good husband, you don't want your wife having an affair. You don't want to come home or find out somehow that your wife is having an affair. Even worse, having an affair with his prince of patience. He's the ultimate patient. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better subject than Stuart.
Yeah, well, Stuart has so much anxiety. One of the early scenes we see is Stuart jamming his hands down in his car, screaming, because he sees a spider on the dashboard. That is freaking unbelievably hilarious.
Think about it. It wouldn't be so hilarious if you had a spider on your dashboard. That little spider's getting ready to attack him in his mind, whether it was real or not. In his mind our mind is pretty amazing, and sometimes it's not so amazing when it plays tricks on you and you start to believe things that aren't really there. And Stuart is a subject of his mind playing tricks on him. And we all have our moments, I think, of paranoia. So in some ways, even though he's so screwed up, many of us can kind of relate to a moment in time when our mind starts to go off in the wrong direction and we start to feel really strange about something that's happening within you. And it's not really a good feeling, especially if you are the subject of it. So, and in some ways you could say even the victim of it. So imagine being the victim of your own mind. It's terrible.
Yeah, the internal terror manifests in such extreme, almost like slapstick ways. Like when he's getting beaten with a frozen steak at the supermarket after dropping a sausage.
That's pretty scary, right? It's like...
Well, it reminds me of those commercials. Those commercials like where you're being attacked by your indigestion?
Oh, yeah, I know it. I've been on heartburn medication for years, so I can relate to that. Poor Stuart. He's a survivor, though. I have to say he's a survivor. He is... Throughout all his misgivings and hardships, he miraculously was able to pull through. But, the interesting thing and really what helped him along, Stuart was on his way to an appointment and he was in an elevator and the elevator was full and there was some pretty funky people in this elevator with him. And he gets off at the wrong place. He's pushed off with this group of people in the elevator, and he ends up in an AA meeting. Alcoholics Anonymous. This guy hasn't had a drink ever in his life. And there's a lot of peer pressure. I don't know if you've been to an AA meeting, but we all have had some, we've had some awareness of what goes on. We've seen it in a number of movies. We've seen it. I don't know. You could probably tell me a movie where if you can recall where you've seen a memorable AA meeting.
Yeah, I think Breaking Bad might have been one.
Breaking Bad. That's a great example. But so anyhow, he ends up in this meeting and it comes time where everybody's introducing themselves and they're saying, they're an alcoholic and how wonderful AA has helped them. And it comes time to him and he introduces himself and, with hesitation, he just goes with the flow and says, I'm Stuart Tadalius and I'm an alcoholic. And somebody in the AA meeting looked at him and they said, he's not an alcoholic. I've known this guy for quite some time and I've never seen him touch a drink. Matter of fact, I've asked him to go for a drink and he's even said to me he doesn't drink. So he's exposed as a fraud now. And an alcoholic, that's pretty terrible. I don't know I can't think of a worse thing when you're in an AA meeting, Maybe the only other worst thing is you get caught, you got some kind of little container that's filled with booze and you're sipping away in the meeting and then you get exposed. But he gets exposed for for lying, essentially. So anyhow, they almost toss him out the window, and somehow he manages to escape that meeting. But that meeting and that exposure was actually the birth of something really powerful in his life. And along with the woman, Mrs. Proxy, who is also somewhat of a hypochondriac, they together joined hands with another group of Stuart's. In a normal world, Stuart's screwed up friends, right? They seem to be more screwed up than the average person, like maybe you or I or your wife or my wife or your brother or your nephew or this one or that one. So we all kind of screwed up a little bit, but his group was very screwed up, but very colorful. They're really colorful characters, each one in their own right. So Stuart and Mrs. Proxy set up this organization that they call Hypochondriac Anonymous. It's a place where you come and introduce yourself. In their real life, they're all suffering from not alcohol, but some form of hypochondriac ailment that's perhaps made up in their own minds. And so that's where the half comes in. Are you asking me, have I set this up in real life?
Yeah, have you?
I've been to some meetings with a bunch of subjects.
Well, but
I
there's the
can't
sub.
name names. You can't name names. And
Did you
can't
ever
really...
have meet somebody like Emilio?
Emilio, he's a great character. Yeah, I mean, come close. I can tell you this. It's like, look, I've been to shrinks in my life, and sure enough, you go through the process, and you expect them to help. But I've been with some, they just fall asleep. Do you consider me a boring guy?
No.
If I'm going to talk to you, it's like, I don't see your eyes shutting. I don't see you falling asleep.
Right.
So I've been the guys that, they get violent. And there was one time I went to this new guy. There was a problem. I felt I was grieving after my father passed away, and I thought I needed to see somebody. And the new guy gets on the phone, and you go in, you fill out all these forms, and one of the things on the form, you're authorizing the doctor to prescribe medicine, as he sees fits. But I didn't sign that part. So I'll never forget. I get into the office. I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. And it said on the form that my father was bipolar. And in those days, they called it a manic depressive. And next thing I know is he says, "Is it all right if I call your wife?" And I said, "Well, I don't see the reason why." I said, "I'm here to see you, not my wife." He said, "No, I just want to talk to her for a minute. I just need to confirm something." He calls up and he says, "He's Dr. So-and-so, and he's sitting there with me, and he says to my wife, 'Is he suicidal? And does he have a weapon?'" I mean, imagine your first 5 minutes of a meeting with a psychiatrist and that happening. It's like, anyhow, so that meeting didn't last long. That psychiatrist didn't last long. He kept calling me for weeks after, telling me I had to go on some medication, which is, I think, it's a violation. I don't think it's really allowed, right?
No.
It violates their standard care of code. So he's always stood out in my mind, and he is my Dr. Proxy in 7.5 Shrinks.
Oh, that's how that character was developed. That's interesting.
Yeah, because he was really a bad guy. I can't tell you his name.
Doesn't matter. We'll call him Dr.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters. He was probably 5'1", was a little short Jewish guy. So, I think he never came to grips with certain things in his own life. And I don't know what they call it when when a guy is shorter, not much shorter than somebody else. He wasn't a pygmy, don't get me wrong, but he suffered from the short guy syndrome or the little guy syndrome. But anyhow, he's an interesting guy, the guy, so I walked away with that as saying, well, this is great material for me. And Dr. Proxy became really a great character to build on.
Well, he ends up becoming Stuart's nemesis, right?
Yeah. He really was using Stuart to write it. He was writing a paper on him, and he was expecting to get a huge grant and win this major award.
Yeah, what was
And
the award? What was
he actually was able to commit him into institution. He got a judge to go along with it. Committed him. I'm not saying that happened to me, but imagine that. Good thing I never signed that release in his office. I did pay the copay.
What was Stuart's validation with, this whole public humiliation?
Well, I mean, Stuart, through organization and all his buddies and Mrs. Proxy, they were able to turn their lives around in a good way, good positive way. And we all have problems and issues in life that we have to contend with. But, when it goes from serious to like manageable, this is what we want. And if you could do manageable without taking, some of these medications that who knows what they do, who knows what the side effects are. It's like, you look on TV and then there's this ad after ad after ad. And then you hear in very fast, like scripture, they mention all these different side effects. And you're like, they go so fast, you can't even hear them. But it should be a warning enough to say, before I take this pill and continue on this pill, I better be leery, buyer beware of the side effects. I mean, we're kind of seeing this right now in the government now with Robert Kennedy. I mean, he's seriously looking at side effects of a lot of medications that can be detrimental to somebody's physical or mental health. And I think it's a good thing. Whatever. I mean, it's about time that somebody's starting to explore.
Well, they opened up a can of worms. They really did, especially when they started to allow drugs to be distributed online and without, actually even seeing a doctor. Think about all the GL weight loss drugs. I mean, it's crazy. Anybody can go online and find out if they could use this drug or not and order online and not even see a doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they have to telemedicine type of thing. But some of these drugs, I mean, can you imagine injecting yourself and within 6 months, you lose 100 pounds or whatever, some crazy numbers I've heard of. You meet people. I met a guy a couple of days ago in the dog park, but he did it naturally. So I have to believe that there can be some serious side effects. And this is a classic example of buyer beware. Before you take this, if you're going to take something that is going to enable you to lose like 1/3 of your weight, your body weight, in a 6-month period, how's it affecting your kidneys or your liver or your heart? Who knows? I mean, I don't know enough about it. I'm not a doctor. I would have been a doctor, but I didn't have any patients.
Vaudevillian, that was definitely a vaudevillian remark.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, what's this scene where he gets his testicles scorched? Tell me about that.
I don't know. Were they cooking something there, or like a Korean barbecue where he gets his testicles scorched?
Yeah, what happened? The accidental assault of a frozen steak.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, we all enjoy our culinary cuisine. We don't expect, steaks are for eating. They're not for getting smacked around. However, if you don't have an ice pack and you sprain your ankle, a frozen steak it
will work.
But if I think you have to be careful when you go into a Korean barbecue that, you don't actually scorch your testicles. So I don't know about you, but it's pretty frightening if you think about it.
It's really frightening, especially at the Korean barbecue place. Imagine being another customer there while you're there, like even waiting in line for pickup. Uber Eats.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah. So I think it's a great script. It's got a lot of colorful actors. There's a lot of comedy. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of unexpected things that happen. It was interesting enough because I collaborated with a young student to do this. He was at USC Film School, which, as you know, it's USC's right up there with, it's in LA, and it's one of the top film schools in the country outside of, I don't know, what's the other one in New York, but
NYU.
NYU. And they're both great in this genre. There's other great schools like in this genre, like Wesleyan University, a small university in Connecticut that most people have never even heard of it, but they are a tremendous school for filmmakers, for script writers. So yeah, he and I collaborated on this story, and I'm a little bit older than he is, and it was always good to have a co-author that you collaborate with, and they put a different spin or perspective on it. Interesting enough, I had always kind of envisioned this story of the same but different without all the action. I wanted to do it more Woody Allen-esque, and I'm still considering that because I think that the story has that Woody Allen-esque type of humor. You look at great humorists or writers or characters, and you don't want to take their material, but you want to emulate their maybe their style, their strength. You take something good. Maybe you take that something good from a number of different screenwriters or writers in comedy, and say, who do I want to emulate? How can I incorporate? I think I even look at this other project that we're working on now called Kundo. Some people like to call it What the Facundo. In that, I always loved Charlie Chaplin films, and I think he's really one of the great ones. And I try and incorporate some of Charlie Chaplin's great stuff in Kundo, but perhaps this is for another podcast, so because we're here today with 7.5 Drinks.
It's a fun story. I am looking forward to how the story is going to be brought to life. It's a nice story where the hero not only wins the girl, but also wins a major mental health award. While his doctor, which commits him to a hospital, and then he ends up like enjoying being in the hospital.
Well, his doctor ends up getting, they take him away. He's a fraud. So, yeah, I mean, it is a great story because, look, everybody feels for an underdog, feels for somebody, feel that from the very beginning. You're rooting for this poor guy. And, you have to wonder, how is he going to turn his life around? And we all want those turnarounds in life because life is not like this. It's like, whoa. And yeah, if we go down that wrong path sometimes, it's like, it's a blessing if somebody can really help you turn it around, or you enable yourself to turn it around. And sure enough, Stuart had a cast of friends and buddies and colorful characters through help turn his life around, and he wins this amazing award, and he gets the woman in the end that he truly cares for, and she loves him as well. So that's the beauty of it. It's got a great ending, and it's really and you could never, I don't know, did you see it coming?
No, I didn't see that coming. No.
Yeah,
I didn't see it coming.
yeah,
but it made you feel good. It was a feel good ending.
Yeah, I mean, I think we
Fine.
need more feel-good endings, right?
Yeah.
We need to be able to laugh. I think, we went through COVID, hard period for everybody. I mean, globally, hard time for everybody. And, people stopped laughing. They stopped finding a joy that we all need in life. And so this was one of the reasons why that's why I think this script is great. And hopefully we're going to make this into a great film, and a film that will create, I think, a lot of laughter, a lot of soul searching, a lot of spiritual searching. And yeah, I mean, that's what I think a lot of people are starving for. They want these kind of stories. They want these kind of characters.
Yeah. It's poetic justice. Mark, it is. It's
Yeah.
Thinking about Stuart's happy ending, finding Colleen, forming which is, Hypochondriac Anonymous. It makes you realize that sometimes all you need is a little push from your friends. Even that, if the push is 140 feet towards the open window, my God. But suddenly you realize that they were only there trying to scare you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes you need a little scare.
Yeah. Well, they did bust him out of the institution. I mean, that I think, as far as the action in that film, when you've got just a wonderful cast of colorful friends and characters that come together and figure out a way to bust them out of the institution. It's almost it's like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but a little bit different, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because his buddies came from outside and broke him in, and I don't know. Of course, you remember One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? It's
yeah, sure.
Goes down as one of the greats.
It sure was.
Yeah.
It was quite funny.
Yeah.
Quite funny.
Yeah. So
also, in a slapstick way, like this screenplay's got a lot of really interesting slapstick in it. You're right.
Yeah.
Like Charlie Chaplin, and
when he's pushed out of the elevator into the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. He didn't mean to end up there, but I could almost picture the scene. Somehow, Charlie Chaplin, in one of his films, I forget which one it was, he turns the corner on the street and he ends up leading a massive protest just by sheer coincidence. He happened to turn that corner, and next thing you know, he's leading this protest. It's like, how cool is that? I mean, you can just picture that whole scene.
We need more scenes like that. We do.
So that's what I thought, the brilliance in getting pushed out of the elevator into an alcoholics meeting, and you're not even an alcoholic. And then comes time for you to speak, and then you're lying, and then you get exposed, and then they hang you out the window, ready to let you go. So there was a little bit of Chaplin-esque in that particular scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie. And thank you, Mark Winik. Thank you for your sheer genius of 7.5 Shrinks. We are all looking forward to seeing this story brought to life, my friend.
Yep. We're working on it. We are working on it. If we sort of work on this a little bit more and make it more Woody Allen-esque, then, I think we can actually put this on the stage, like as a play. So I think that could be incredible too. So, yeah. But thank you. I love your podcast. I know you've got a great audience. You've got a great number of creative subscribers that love your wonderful newsletter, Sunday in a Sip, and they also love your podcast because you bring on a lot of terrific, talented, colorful characters. And I always learn something from the people that you interview. And from you, of course.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a lot of fun. It really is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me be part of your day. And until next time, keep noticing what makes life taste a little better. And if you're loving this, don't just sip in silence. Follow us, hit the subscribe button, and pour this into someone else's cup. Share it, spread it. Let's wake the world up together, one daily sip at a time.